I'm taking pictures of you.
Me?
Yeah.
For what?
For a movie.
What kind of movie?
We're making a movie about you.
Who said that?
I am.
You're full of shit.
I am.
Yeah.
That's why I've been doing it. Haven't you seen me with the camera everywhere?
Huh?
Don't you see the camera everywhere?
Yeah.
So what did you think I was doing?
That's a good idea.
What? To make a movie about you?
You are?
Yep.
Am I going to get paid for that?
No.
It'll cost you money.
Okay, I'll pay you tomorrow.
So we wanted to know, was that the big inspiration, was wanting to give tribute to your mother and the people who never really get the credit that is really due for this, which is the families.
So when you say that, really, it makes me think how, so when I started, so I have a master's in film. And when I started this project, I really didn't know where I was going with it. I just knew that I had to pick up the camera because I knew something was really going on in our situation. So I didn't even really watch the footage back. I mean, I checked to make sure that you could hear it and see my footage, but I kept my memory cards stored for quite a while because I went right back into Arlene's story, Arlene and High. And so probably after a year and a half when I started logging the footage, and when I started watching the footage, I really couldn't even watch it. I kept filming Arlene for 4 years, Arlene and High. So the first year watching my mom and dad, I had a very difficult time even watching the footage back. So at that time, I really didn't know that I was specifically focusing on the caregiver till the story started developing at the end, since people have watched the film, I guess. When High came to visit his dad, he hadn't seen his dad for 4 years, and I filmed him visiting his dad. That's when I had watched all the footage back point, and the caregiver theme started to seep in. So really, it wasn't like I had intended on making the film specifically about the caregiver until the entire story started developing. But yes, I feel that the caregiver really is the unsung hero. It's 24 hours a day for a caregiver. It's heartbreaking watching back, or even watching the film now, about the struggles that my mom and Arlene and others had caring for their people. So my hearts go out to anybody that's a caregiver, family members, children of people who are suffering from Alzheimer's, anybody, even friends. I noticed most friends were disappearing from my mom's life. And so even the friends that stayed, I feel are unsung heroes. And my heart goes out to every single one of them, and they all deserve credit for what they have to go through.
How do we know when we should stop and seek professional help to bring care into the home? Thank you for that question, Ken.
So that's such a great question. And I want you to know that we never asked for help. I again, like I was saying to you before, I hope my film makes people realize through our mistakes of what not to do. But I don't think there's any right or wrong answer in what you did. I think you should be commended for what you did, for all that you did. We should never have regret in our life. You should be so proud of yourself, of the care that you gave your parent. Really be so proud of yourself. And we had over $400,000 in long-term care. And my mom didn't use that money because she was worried that if my dad lived longer, what would we have done? Because putting somebody into a nursing home can run over $5,000 a month. Now, looking back, I would say to somebody, reach out as soon as possible. If you have somebody that's facing this, I would tell them, don't wait for professional help. Start immediately when you find out the diagnosis that someone has Alzheimer's. But you did nothing wrong. We did nothing wrong. All we can do is the best that we can do. And again, just be so proud of yourself. Make me cry that you were there for your parent. And I think you should be so happy that what you did. And I honor you. You're one of our heroes as well. And I really, really mean that from my heart.
I actually had a question about that the decision to show the body. That was almost a provocative scene. I was not ready for that. What I wish I could have been a fly in the room deciding that. I mean, that's such an intimate view on death that we really don't get to see often. And so actually seeing that, just it made it so real. And I was wondering, was that immediately they were just all right with that, or was that a big conversation?
Yes, that's really interesting that you bring this up. So Arlene and I had talked, and I asked her, we had been on the phone because I knew Hai was going to pass soon, or we didn't know, but it was, he was going downhill. And so Arlene called me, and I ran over, and I, of course, decided not to show the last moment of when he passed away. I don't think that was necessary. That was a really difficult decision that I probably spent a year discussing, editing, looking at, and then when I had my first rough cut of the film, I showed it to a few people and to Arlene, because it was the first time she's ever seen the film itself. And we had a big discussion about it. And I asked her, are you okay? Of course, I think it's really important as a filmmaker to respect the person that's in the film. And so I asked Arlene, if she was okay with me keeping that in the film, and she gave me her blessing on it. And I really felt it was so necessary for my film to show that. And so I did keep it in. I did spend, so real quick, I've spent over 900 editing hours on this film.
Wow.
We had 4 editors. So and I'm still friends with all of them, but each one, had a different reason for being an editor. So I think some editors get really close. And so I brought in a finishing editor, for example. And just to go back a little bit, this was my final, so I have a master's in film, but I only had limited documentary experience. So this is actually my final project from the Center of Documentary Studies from Duke University.
Wow.
So I had a big team of people. And so I spent years before I gave up, my final cut. And I spent, to go back now to that scene, I spent as countless hours to get that to as short as possible, because I didn't, want to exploit that in the film. Yeah. So it's really interesting that you brought that up. I guess most films don't really show that typically. Yet this was the journey. This is what I had on camera, and I felt it was necessary to complete this film.
But I was just very curious. You show a lot of flashback film of your parents at the beach, just being cute in general, young lovebirds. Was she all right with that? Was it also a large conversation there of, is it okay if I really display your whole life, the world to see?
So I had a box of films that said Howard's Films. That's my cousin's name. And my dad was really never that technologically proficient in anything. So I actually held on to that box, and the whole time I thought, well, they're probably films of my cousin. So I held on to that. Like I said, it took 6 years from beginning to end to complete this project before I started outreach and submitting to festivals. And so I held on to that box, and then one day I rented a projector, and I started projecting it, and I couldn't believe that my dad was a cinematographer in the 1950s. So, and I was like, oh my God, you know, as a filmmaker, that's golden material, before I talk about my mom's feeling towards it. So I actually, it snapped. So I stopped, you know, projecting it, and I sent it to British Columbia and Victoria. I found a restoration company that works with the movie industry in British Columbia and Canada and Victoria. And so I sent it to British Columbia, and it ended up in South America, Colombia. And for 1 month, I had no idea where the film was. The post office wouldn't call them. So I almost lost that footage. And with my mom, anyways, thank God they found it. I was on the phone for, you wouldn't believe, 10 hours a day. I need that film, make a phone call. So anyways, obviously it worked out. And with my mom, I don't really think she knew really what this project was going to be till the end. And I do want to say, so when you say that, it makes me think about one of the hardest things about this project was balancing my mom's love for my dad, because a lot of times you have to be very careful, because of course my mom loved my dad, but you imagine when you're in that situation how you explode. So I painstakingly spent hundreds of hours developing. I had over 200 amazing hours of footage. So the hardest part was developing that story and balancing the love of my mom and her frustrations. I think I did a really good job with it. So when my mom watches this film back and watching her whole life flash before, in a way, bringing up what you just said, it's hard for her. She's only watched it a few times. I don't want to put her through that, but she understands how important this project is, and she's really proud of this project as well. But watching herself back, first of all, I think it's heartbreaking for her, like I said, to watch her whole life flash before you in an hour and 14 minutes with that amazing footage of them from the 1950s. You're really watching your life flash before you. I couldn't even imagine what goes through her head when she watches it. But she's been a trooper, and she speaks after some of the films. But she's an amazing lady, and she understands how important this film is. And I always say, if I can help one person and help one person find an outlet to help them through their journey, then I changed one person's life. Oh my God, for me, that's a really big deal. If one person ends up having an easier time, or their health is better, then I help change the world. So I always look at it, it's one person, one audience member each time. It's one person per watch of my film. So if that makes sense.